Guys, we're going to have a great episode today. Before we get into that, I want to thank you guys, the listeners, for all the support that you get. I want to remind you that you can reach out to me on Instagram. If you don't follow it at JScottOutdoors. Feel free to send me a DM. I love corresponding with you guys about your hunts and any questions that you might have. We're going to have a great episode. I also want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com. Cody Nelson, my friend of 20 plus years, he's the glassing guru, the optics authority. He's the optics manager over there at GoHunt.com at the gear shop. You can reach out directly for info or for sales at 702-847-8747. You can also email him at optics@gohunt.com. He also gets texts from my listeners on his cell phone, 602-399-3699. Feel free to send him a text if you're looking for a certain tripod or binocular or spotting scope or rifle scope, anything to do with optics. Give Cody Nelson a call or a text. I want to thank GoHunt.com also and remind you guys that the GoHunt maps, the mobile app, mapping apps, are now available on iTunes and Android. They have real 3D. It's awesome 3D mapping on these mobile apps. You can get a free trial, a 7-day free trial, by going to gohunt.com/JScott. You can also check in the show notes. I'll have it linked up. You get a 7-day free trial. That gives you access to everything in the Insider, as well as let you look at the mapping apps both on the desktop and on your phone. You can also sign up by going to gohunt.com and just use JScott, and that's going to save you $50. You're actually going to get a GoHunt gift card, $50 GoHunt gift card when you sign up. So go check it out. Also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. That's the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. Go to KUIU.com to order the gear right there that are direct-to-consumer model. So that's the only place you can get the gear, as well as phonescope.com. Use the JScott21 promo code, and you're going to get a 10% discount. Guys, let's get right to this episode. And again, thanks for listening. Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today I've got John Adams and Kevin Call of High Point Outfitters out of Arizona. Guys, how you doing?
Doing good, Kevin. You want to shoot that one too? Well, Kevin was looking at me.
For the listeners that don't know, it took me about 3 cuts to say High Point Outfitters, even though I've had these guys on about 40 times. Guys, it's great to have you on. We're getting close here to a deadline. I believe June 14th is our deadline for Arizona deer and sheep, and I wanted to make sure to get you guys on and get your forecast and get your thoughts on the upcoming season, talk a little bit about last season, and so I'm excited to have you on. Before we get to that, just checking in, everything good with you guys? You guys enjoying your summer?
Everything's great, Jay. Yeah, we're Flagstaff is greening up. Of course, it's a little dry right now. We're anxious to get monsoon season. They tell us that it's going to be here a little early. Got our fingers crossed that that'll happen, of course. But, yeah, fantastic. Weather's warming up. The Kaibab's looking phenomenal right now. So bring it on. Yeah, we're excited to get this draw process over and see who's going to get a tag.
For sure. I'm excited as well. Now, one of the things I want to touch on is last season. From what I understand, awesome monsoon, but the monsoon came late, but it came heavy. But it didn't really translate into antler growth. Talk a little bit about last year, some of the challenges that last season brought, and then we'll kind of parlay that into maybe your forecast because of that season last year, how it's going to look this season.
Jay, good question. Maybe as you said, we had fantastic moisture last summer. It was a little late to have any antler growth. Actually, it was a little late as well for fawn recruitment. So our fawn recruitment was down again last year. So we are missing probably 1, 2, 3 year old age class because the last 3 years the fawn recruitment's been poor. about half is what it has or should be. And antler growth was certainly below average last year. But this year we had fantastic moisture throughout the summer. We had good winter moisture. We were up there even in May, still had snow on the north facing slopes, still even down on the winter range. So the moisture was great this winter. We're always dry May, June, and that's just typical, of course, for Arizona. But the good thing is we've had good water content throughout last summer, fall, and winter. So we feel like we'll at least have average antler growth this year, maybe a touch better, but we're looking for a strong year on the Kaibab. Of course, there is some age class missing, not as many deer on the Kaibab right now because of the poor fawn recruitment the last 3 years, but we don't really target those bucks until they, hit the 4, 5, 6 years anyway. So I think we're going to be fine for the next couple of years, but at some point there will be a little bit of a gap. So those that are looking to, should they draw this year or wait? We're all about this is the year to get it done the next couple of years, because there will probably be a gap because of the lack of fawn recruitment the last 3 years. But we're strong on the Kaibab this year. Last year, if I could maybe let John talk a little bit, but the early hunt we had tons of water everywhere, tons of grass everywhere, feed everywhere, so the deer were super spread out. We struggled a little bit, quite frankly. The people that wanted to kill bucks, we got it done the first couple of days, but those that wanted to find that better age class was a little difficult because the deer were super spread out. Obviously, the deer were still there because we had a great late hunt. The rut was just fantastic. The does were in excellent shape. The bucks were in excellent shape. We had a great rut, just like the elk hunt. The elk hunt last year probably had one of the best ruts that we've ever seen. The deer on the Kaibab were the same way. We had a phenomenal rut on the late hunt. So the late hunt was super fun. The antler growth was a little off, but plenty of bucks around to choose from, and that's just a super fun hunt. But the early hunt was a little tough, quite frankly. We've been spoiled. I think the last 4 or 5 years has been so dry that deer were just pounding the water, concentrated around the water on the early hunt. Last year that wasn't the case. They were spread out, and it made for a little bit of a challenging early hunt.
Going back to last year's hunt, across the board, would you say, normally where you might be looking for a couple of bucks over that 200-inch mark, was it very hard to find anything over 200? And, your better bucks last year were, mid-80s type bucks? Or what kind of difference was last year compared to, say, maybe 19, that was a really good year? Just talk a little bit about the high-end bucks last year compared to normal.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little harder to find, 4, 5, 6, 7, 200-inch type bucks. And usually sometimes we can do that, Jay. But, I mean, there was a 250 buck that got taken with the governor's tag last year on the Kaibab that we found. I mean, phenomenal buck. But after that, it fell off. And I mean, there was a lot of 180 type bucks, 160 type bucks. But to get into that 190 plus type range, 200 was a grind. I mean, and it was just because they were so spread out, and, the antler growth was down a little bit. It wasn't horrible, but it was not where it should be. And this year, I think with the age class being there, and, the Kaibab looking like it is currently right now, I don't see why we would not have better age class than we did last year.
Okay. What about tag numbers on that west side? correct me if I'm wrong, but the tag numbers have been decreased, which should make for a phenomenal late hunt for sure, right?
Yeah, you know Kevin is a numbers guy, so I'll let Kevin go over these numbers. He's got these down.
You know, Jay, we are excited because of the lack of recruitment. They have reduced the tags. They went from 75 to 50 on the late West 12A West, and they've done pretty much the same throughout all the units. But so let's just use 12A West late, 33% reduction. On the early hunt, they've got a 20% reduction, and that was similar to what they've done. I mean, Jay, it's phenomenal that just 4 years ago we were at 100 tags on the early hunt. We are now at 50, and we had 500 on the early hunt. Rifle hunt, we're at 300, so almost cut in half. They did the same on the archery hunt, again, almost in half from where we were at the peak 5 years ago. They killed the doe hunt. We were over 500 tags on the doe hunt 5 years ago. They went down to 25 just to kind of keep the hunt in place so they wouldn't have to try to get that hunt back in place. So they almost killed the doe hunt this year completely. So net, we're probably saving 250, maybe 300 deer off of all those hunts that we were harvesting 5 years ago. Game and Fish have told me that we harvested more deer in 19 and 18 than they have tags this year. So a great reduction, which we're all for. The good thing is with that tag reduction, if they'll keep it for a couple years, the deer can rebound quickly on the Kaibab. I will be shocked if we don't see a lot of does with twins this year. It'll be quick to rebound. We will have a strong comeback and try to rebound for those lack of 2-3-year-old bucks that we will be missing this year. But it's good to see that they were proactive in reducing the tags. And as you know, Jay, that's throughout the Southwest. I mean, Nevada has devastated, reduced their tags. The Strip reduced tags. Southern Utah reduced tags. I mean, everybody's reducing mule deer tags, which is unfortunate on one hand, but it will make the hunt phenomenal for those that actually can get a tag.
Yeah, for sure. As from a quality of hunt standpoint on the west side, going from 100 now down to 50, talk about how much better that hunt from just an enjoyment standpoint will be with half the amount of people than that 100 that they used to have. And I believe it used to be 150 or 175 even years ago on the late hunt.
Yeah, Jay, I mean, back in the day in the 80s, there was 500 tags on that hunt. So, but yeah, I mean, 50 tags, I mean, there is so much country to hunt, so many bucks to hunt. Even with 100 tags, we don't run into people. So with 50 tags, it's fantastic. Last year we had 75 tags. We were not competing heavily with a lot of hunters. We did have one altercation, but yeah, I mean, that's just a part of, hunting the best bucks in the unit, and finding, especially with trail cameras that are gone now, people with trail cameras, sometimes we have some overlap, but without trail cameras, with half the tags, we will have the place to ourselves, and it will be a phenomenal hunt on that late hunt.
You bring up trail cameras. What impact do you think pulling the cameras away, what impact do you think not only this season, but in seasons to come, what kind of impact, from all aspects, what kind of impact do you think that will have?
I think it's a positive impact for the deer and for hunters. I mean, across the board. I mean, the only negative impact that I've heard is, people not being able to get out there with their kids early or something and check pictures, but they can still get out and look at, animals through the binos with their kids, But as far as the deer, you're going to have way less, spats around water holes with people hunting the same exact deer that have never seen the deer. They've just seen it on a picture. And as far as the age class, you're going to be able to hunt a deer that not everybody knows about. And you're not going to be able to know that deer scores 210 to 215 because you've only got a glimpse of them, or maybe it might be the first time you got to see that deer. So that, I think it's taken it back to where it used to be, the unknown going into the woods. So,
I mean, Jay, there is no doubt that trail cameras were a good source of information, not only for us, but a lot of other folks. And we use that information and have used that information for the last 10, 12 years we've been running cameras. And that, it's unfortunate that that information is gone. But I think it will definitely improve the age class on the Kaibab. I'm excited, to get 4 or 5 years down the road and see how that age class changes. But it will definitely affect the harvest of bucks. I mean, if you take any information away, it's got to change things, and it will change things.
I mean, Joe, take for instance, there was a guy running no trail cameras. He was sitting in this water hole. And it was a dry year, it was 2 years ago. There was not one buck that had hit that tank in 2 months, right? I mean, I'm literally not a spike, not a 2 point, not nothing had hit that water hole. There was does and fawns annihilating that pond. And that guy sat there for 2 days waiting for a buck to show up. And without trail cameras, you would have maybe checked tracks and kind of went through it and stuff, but now we will know you'll just have to go off of past experience of what you've already known, what you've learned and stuff like that. It's going back to boots on the ground and going back to what you've known and what you can rely on. And
sure.
And some of those people that have never been to the Kaibab don't know the migration routes, don't know kind of the paths of, the deer and stuff, that's something that they're not going to be able to pick up on in 2 years. It's going to take a long time for them to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I want to ask you guys about the impact of those fires and how it affected, say, some of the 12B hunts, and did it hold up some of those deer where they didn't pile off there? Did they hold up in those burns, or did they go ahead and pile off like normal? Just curious if those burns affected the transition, the migration, and in and out of those transition zones, or if they stayed high for longer.
They like in the past, they would kind of hold up in that middle ground, kind of where the fire went through for, a couple weeks maybe, but now they're going right through it. Like you can watch a deer go right from the top of the burn all the way through in one day. I mean, I watched one buck go all the way from the top all the way down to the bottom to the winter range in less than an hour.
Do you think that will change as that feed matures in that burn, or do you think they'll still just skate right through it?
I think they will. It will change, obviously, but there's very little cover in that area. It's starting to green up where there's a little bit of vegetation. Wherever there was vegetation, or on the edge of the burn, that's where the deer would hang up, kind of bed and stuff. But if they got in that moonscape burn, they were gone. I mean, they moved right through it quick.
Jay, the Mangum fire wasn't as a productive fire as the Warren fire was 20 years ago. That Mangum fire, of course, started in Mangum Canyon and then ran right along that steep slope, all the draws and canyons from Warren Creek all the way up to Utah border. That part of the Kaibab is so steep that where it really burned heavy, Of course, last year was the first year we got water on it. We got rain on it. The monsoons were so compacted in, a couple hours a day kind of a thing, that it ran water everywhere, washed out roads, tore up a lot of stuff. It wasn't the rain wasn't overly productive because it wasn't slow, if you will. So we did see some growth, but the major portion of that fire was in such steep country that really hasn't had an opportunity to generate some growth. Certainly around the edges and some on top, and a few places, but the majority of the burn is still moonscape, and so not overly productive. Certainly not as productive as the Warren fire has been over the years.
Okay, that's good information. One last question for you guys. When you compare the west side to east side, is the east side still the redheaded stepchild, if you will, of the two?
Yeah, Jay, the thing about the east side, and it's a little worrisome for people that, have waited for, like the late hunt, 20, 25 years. Sometimes the deer don't move off down the winter range that make it an easy, fun hunt, out in the winter range. They'll hold up, and if you don't have weather, they just don't push off good. Whereas on the west side, whether it's top or bottom, there's a lot of country that's huntable, and you can find those bucks. And there's just a lot more deer on the west side. I'm not sure what's happened on the east side, but there's certainly not as many deer on the east side down the winter range than there has been even just 10 years ago. I think we've not had a lot of good winters during the hunt the last 5 or 6 years, so maybe the deer just have not moved off as they have traditionally, and maybe it's winter rather than the migration. But a lot of deer staying in the park, a lot of deer not moving off in the winter range for whatever reason. But and there's just not the deer numbers on the east as there is the west. We've hunted the west, and we will hunt the west on the late hunt and early hunts. In fact, we preferred the east side early hunt when the Warren fire was about 3 or 4 years old. But there's just more water on the east side compared to the west side in the burn, and so there's a lot more deer on the west side up high on the early hunts than there is on the east hunt, and then on the late hunt there's just no real advantage of hunting the east side other than fewer tag numbers, but there's just fewer deer, and we just preferred the west side.
Makes sense. Guys, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for giving us your forecast and outlook here for the Kaibab. I want to give you guys a chance to let the listeners know how they can reach out to you. Also, if you have any concluding thoughts, go for it. And I just appreciate you guys coming on.
Hey, John, I really appreciate the phone call. One thing that I do want to point out, man, our lion density is high on the Kaibab. And talking to we don't hunt lion that often up there, but the guys that do, they're harvesting the toms. But man, there are so many female lions that are not getting harvested. Hunters that book outfitters don't want to kill a female, and our female population, lion population, is off the charts. So we do need some help. Anybody that wants to kill a lion, give us a holler, and let's go kill some lions, because that could certainly help the Kaibab. But the best way to catch us is on our website. highpointoutfitters.net is the best place to reach us, and you can follow us on Instagram. My Instagram handle, actually, John is the one to follow because he does more posts than I do, but I'm HPO _ Kevin _ call. John is AZ _ hunter. And anyway, that's us on Instagram or out on our website. All of our phone numbers are out there. More information about us, last year's pictures, that kind of stuff. Our website's the best way to catch us, and you can do an email right off that website as well. So if anybody needs help before the 14th, trying to decide what you're going to do or how you're going to burn your 25 points, give us a holler, shoot us an email. What else, John?
That's it. Appreciate it, Jay.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for everything. God bless. Have a good summer, and we'll be chatting at you probably around elk season. So take care, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
All right. Bye.